At this point, you have a solid foundation in the basics of computer science and in developing software in Python. As you're using these skills, it's important to remember that in any software job, other people will be reviewing and using your code. They'll need to understand what's going on, and this is where code quality becomes really important. Why do we need to think about the quality of our code? Isn't it good enough if it just works like it's supposed to? Let's take a look at these two code samples. Both of these functions check if there are exactly 2 of the character E in a string. But it's much easier to tell that from the second function. It's commented, the function and variables are named descriptively, and the white space makes it easier to follow the logic of the code. Let's talk about 6 strategies that you can use to write good quality code. First, you can use good descriptive names with proper casing. In Python, we use underscores between lowercase words in functions and variable names. This is called snake case because it looks a bit like a snake, and you can look up the other fun case types that you'll see in different programming languages like upper and lower camel case and kebab case. Another strategy is to avoid long and complex lines of code. Here, we can break down this almost unreadable code into more lines that each handle one step of the process. Then we can easily tell how each list is being indexed and what the input is. Code review is a modern coding practice used in almost every software development workplace, and it involves reading other people's code and sharing your own anytime an update is made. By avoiding complex lines of code, you can make reviewing your code so much easier, and your colleagues can focus on making helpful suggestions rather than having to figure out the logic of your programs. The third code quality strategy is to use proper indentation. In Python, indentation is required, but that's not true of every programming language. These code samples are written in HTML, a markup language that is used to create web content. HTML doesn't require indentation, but you can see that the code on the right is so much easier to read than the code on the left. Indentation can make the structure of your code readable, even when it isn't required. The fourth strategy is to use helpful comments and docstrings to remind yourself and tell others what is happening in your code. Docstrings are a special kind of Python comment that are surrounded by triple quotes and can be easily used for external documentation. It's good practice to put a docstring like this at the beginning of every function that you write. The docstring should include a summary of what the function does, any parameters that it uses, and then any values that it returns. The fifth strategy is to use the DRY principle. DRY stands for don't repeat yourself. If you're using the same code more than once, it should go into a function. Functions that handle shorter repetitive tasks in code are called helper functions. And in this example, we can use the helper function pay to do a repetitive calculation. This makes our overtime function much more readable and avoids repeating the same line of code over and over. Our final strategy for writing good quality code is to use the PEP 8 style guide for Python. This official guide shows even more good coding practices and will help you write beautiful code that is shareable and readable. You can check out the links in this topic to see a few parts of the style guide. It makes a great impression on potential employers or your coworkers when you write good quality code. Remember to use these strategies, and you can confidently share your work.